menos mami. Puede estar aquí.
As a mayor, that I can make a real difference on the ground by translating the macro goal
conference. May I take it that the conference wishes to elect by acclamation on behalf of all participants. I want to congratulate His Excellency
and a privilege for me to have been elected President of the 2022 United Nations Conference
of General Assembly. Your Excellency Colin Vixen Calabil, President of the Economic and Social Council. Distinguished heads of...
é com especial gosto
Colin Nzomfu, Minister of Green Economy and Environment, Zambia, to give highlights, or representative in his behalf, to give highlights on the outcome of the just concluded 56th
as the sport at Glasgow. Doubling climate finance will be key. Advancing
usually the hardest. I just wondered what do you see are the main obstacles that are...
Thank you. Lady at the back there, I'm also conscious that we may...
The conference has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item number 5.
Eu agradeço ao Sr. Presidente da República de Guiné-Bissau. Muito obrigado.
Kale Pela, President of the Economic and Social Council, to make his statement. And I now invite His Excellency Colin
and ECOSOC President for their guidance and support for the preparation of
Pacific Islands Forum member countries and territories.
It is so decided. On behalf of the conference, I congratulate
Presidents, eso significa
the President of the Republic of Colombia.
Let me say that it gives me great pleasure to join the President of Portugal to welcome you to the second UN Oceans Conference, which Kenya is honored to co-host with Portugal. I want to thank His Excellency President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa and the government of Portugal for the excellent preparations to host us here in Lisbon. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, this conference was scheduled to be held in 2020, but had to be postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to thank all of you for your patience and also for joining us today in Lisbon. The first UN Oceans Conference, which was hosted by Sweden and Fiji in 2017, raised an alarm on the urgent need to scale up action on the SDG 14 to conserve and sustainably use oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Our actions are not commensurate with the threat that faces the oceans. We urgently need to build an ocean-based economy where effective protection, sustainable production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. These actions must be taken collectively because the ocean is a global common good. 2/3 of our global waters lie in areas beyond national jurisdiction of economic zones. Action or lack of action in one sea will have a positive or negative effect on other seas. Success in managing our global aquatic resource therefore requires and hinges critically on all of us working together. We need, ladies and gentlemen, to build political momentum towards ocean climate action as we head for the 27th session of the UN Climate Conference in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt in November of this year. We can no longer continue to make commitments that we cannot honor. Let me stress the importance of engaging all stakeholders. The youth, for example, must be our torchbearers on ocean action, and they need a front row seat in this discussion. The inspiring ocean-based actions that the youth presented yesterday demonstrate that they indeed are and can be a part of the solution. So as I conclude, I take this opportunity to wish all of us fruitful deliberations, and in the years to come, I would like us to look back on Lisbon as the place where we bent the arch of history and boldly chose to sustainably produce and protect our oceans. I thank you. The ocean is the most underappreciated resource on our planet. Most of us do not comprehend just how central the ocean is to human existence. And for this, let me just cite a few examples which underscore why we are in this meeting today. Our oceans cover 70% of the global surface, and 3 billion people depend on marine and coastal biodiversity. The ocean is home to about 80% of all life in the world, and it supplies nearly half of the oxygen we breathe and 90% of the world's goods are traded across oceans, and this list goes on and on. But human action has put ocean systems under immense stress. We dump more than 8 million tons of plastics into the oceans each year, sickening and contaminating at least 700 species of marine life. We're also threatening the stability of fish populations through illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and are altering and destroying marine ecosystems through dumping of toxic wastes into the waters. Poor management of the ocean has reduced the ocean's natural ability to restore itself. And I find it quite surprising that we would put such a critical resource at risk. But yet, if we manage the ocean more sustainably, it could produce as much as 6 times more food, generate 40 times more renewable energy than it currently does, and help lift millions of people across the globe out of poverty and increase economic as well as environmental resilience. It is our expectation, therefore, that this conference will shift gear from proposals to action. Action that is driven by science, technology, and innovation. We expect to hear about solutions, examples of nature-based solutions. We expect to understand the linkages between oceans, climate change, and land-based action, such as pollution. And of great interest to most of us, ladies and gentlemen, is that we expect to leave Lisbon with a clear understanding of financing options and pathways. We note with concern that the SDG 14 is the most underfunded of all the 17 SDGs. Let's say it is good to see so many of you participating in this Ocean Decade Alliance meeting. Indeed, for some of us, the ocean does inspire awe and mystery. For many who live in coastal states, the ocean is an infinite source of easy to secure food, as well as a major transport route. But a small group of knowledgeable scientists recognizes that the ocean is not just the heartbeat of our planet, with tremendous potential to drive our economies and feed our people, but it is also under severe stress from human action. They understand that we need to develop a new relationship between humanity and the ocean, a relationship that enables us to produce more from the ocean while at the same time protecting it. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the core essence of the Ocean Decade 2021 to 2030. Much about the ocean, as I said earlier, still remains a mystery. And since we cannot manage what we do not understand, the Ocean Decade is intended to provide a framework for delivering the knowledge, evidence, and solutions that are required to sustainably manage the oceans. As a patron of the Ocean Decade Alliance, I have developed a deeper appreciation of the difference it makes to have a better understanding of the ocean. Just as an example, fish stock assessment surveys conducted by marine scientists in Kenya have revealed the scale of illegal fishing taking place in our waters. Distant water fishing vessels were carting away so much of the high-value fish that the shoals were getting smaller and smaller. And as a result of this knowledge, and in order to curb illegal fishing, This led us to enhancing the capacity of our Coast Guard to effectively undertake its surveillance functions. In a much similar vein, analysis on blue foods conducted under the auspices of the High-Level Panel for Sustainable Ocean Economy, the Oceans Panel, where I serve as a member, demonstrated that blue foods provide a vital source of protein and nutrition for more than 3 billion people worldwide. With smarter management practices and technological innovation, the research showed that by 2050, the oceans can sustainably produce up to 2/3 of the animal protein needed to feed the world's population. We in Kenya are also building on this evidence to strengthen our capacity and the capacity of our fishing communities to increase their fish stocks. This conference is expected to adopt intergovernmental declarations on science-based and innovative areas of action, along with a list of voluntary commitments to support implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, Life Below Water. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is notable that the common theme in all these global events is addressing this triple global crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Africa, all her member states, under the umbrella of the African Union and the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, must therefore synchronize its messages and speak loudly and clearly with one voice in all interrelated global events. We must use our collective bargaining weight to its full advantage to influence the outcome of these multilateral processes. Once again, let me start by conveying my thanks to our co-host, Portugal, through my good friend, President de Souza, in the manner in which we have organized and put this conference together. I also join him in thanking the Secretary General for his commitment to this particular agenda. It's not new to him. It's something that he has been passionate and closely followed, and his support and his commitment, I do believe, will go a long way in ensuring that we find consensus on something that concerns us all. I also want to thank all the participants because, again, as we said earlier, we know this conference is 2 years late as a result of COVID. And it is indeed my hope that we will be able to build on here in Lisbon, where we left off from the first conference that was hosted by Sweden and Fiji. And again, as I said earlier, then we committed ourselves to certain actions. We made a lot of commitments as to what to do. Our hope and our prayer is that in Lisbon, we will turn those commitments into action. We now have the science. We are no longer engaged in guesswork. We know the harm that we are doing to our oceans. We know that if we do not begin to reverse some of those actions, we are facing a global calamity. This is not a fight that can be won by any one nation. This is a fight that is going to require each and every one of us. This is where our attention should be, and it is indeed my hope, especially working through you, our colleagues in the Fourth Estate, working with young people whose future it is that we are jeopardizing. We will begin to find and to act on the solutions that we already have. We will begin to put resources behind this fight. We can no longer continue with empty words. Words are not going to help us. It is action. It is being able to mobilize the necessary resources to be able to deliver on the proposals that we have. And it is my hope and prayer that all delegations here will be able to find consensus on a way forward that gives a bright and promising future, especially for our young people. Ladies and gentlemen, in the ocean, therefore, lies great risk as well as great opportunity. The burden of choice lies with each and every one of us. Over the last decade, we have accumulated sufficient knowledge of all the risks and opportunities and deepened our understanding of actions that we should take. The 2018 Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, which Kenya hosted together with Canada and Japan, highlighted untapped opportunities in enhancing marine technology and innovation, and the strengthening science and research to generate evidence-based policies. The conference also underscored the urgent need to mobilize financing from both public and private sources. The high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, where I serve as a member, has also developed a path-breaking set of ocean transformations where environmental protection and conservation, sustainable economic production, and equitable prosperity go hand in hand. The high-level panel has commissioned a compendium of evidence-based reports, including reports on addressing plastic pollution, financing the ocean economy, and making the benefits from the ocean economy equitable. Kenya recognizes the very unique role of early career ocean professionals and youth in protecting our oceans and in creating a greater understanding of human connectivity to the oceans. And it is for this reason that we have upscaled capacity-building activities such as fish farming in the mudflats along the coastal strip, tree planting including mangroves, crab farming, business development studies, and table banking initiatives, all aimed at our youth. Through conferences and Blue Talks, Kenya continues to raise awareness of the need to increase investment in ocean science. In addition, as government, we have also mobilized at the regional and global levels. Moreover, Kenya has also established a maritime academy to enhance maritime literacy as well as skills. Ladies and gentlemen, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission Ocean Teacher Academy is hosted in Kenya. The Academy continues to organize and to facilitate ocean-based and aquatic science, prioritize programs for our region. I would like today to invite like-minded institutions to partner with this academy to spearhead ocean literacy and aquatic science programs across the African continent. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I only wish to highlight the importance of the call to action that we are all making today. Our message is clear. The time for action is now. We must embrace the opportunity offered by the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development to close the knowledge and financing gap and advance the quest for a healthy, well-balanced, and well-managed planet. I can inform that with Kenya's updated nationally determined contributions, we this time have included a range of ocean climate actions such as conservation of mangroves and associated blue carbon ecosystems. Indeed, one such program is the mangrove protection program known as Mikoko Pamoja that is currently ongoing in one of our counties called Kwale in Kenya. And this was the first mangrove blue carbon project in the world. The local community, which benefits from the revenues generated through carbon credits, now has a strong incentive to protect mangroves. It is a win-win scenario in which communities earn income while at the same time enabling us to protect the mangroves. Another interesting initiative is a program that supports women through seaweed farming. Again, in another county of Kenya, of Kwale. This has grown from experimental farming to a thriving cottage industry that produces soaps and lotions and shampoos. And researchers from our Kenya Industrial Research and Development Institute support the women to produce these cosmetics. Ladies and gentlemen, these are just a few demonstrations of how ocean research and knowledge can transform policy and practice to sustainably produce from the ocean. Unfortunately, all these projects that I've mentioned are all relatively small. The scope and quality of research required to inform ocean action at scale carries a high price tag and often needs to be undertaken over a long period. This is the key challenge that the Ocean Decade currently faces. Indeed, funding for research that the Ocean Decade has managed to raise since 2021 is minuscule relative to the kind of knowledge that we require them to produce. And I want to assure all of you that during Kenya's term, we shall strive to work in a very inclusive manner to deliver on the mandate of this committee. Let me also thank the African Union Commission Chair, Safaki, for organizing this meeting, and indeed to thank all members of this committee for honoring the invitation on such very short notice. I do believe a provisional work plan on how we will undertake our mandate has been prepared and will be considered during this meeting. Since its inception in 2008, this committee has provided a platform for us to discuss and adopt a common African position and key messages on climate-related matters, which has enabled us to speak with one voice in the UN climate change negotiations. This year, in particular, is quite an extraordinary year for environment and climate change. And indeed, starting with the United Nations Environmental Assembly, UNEA 5.2 session that was held in Nairobi in March of this year, we did adopt 14 resolutions to tackle the triple global crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And we celebrated the United Nations Environmental Programme, UNEP at 50, and more recently in Stockholm, plus 50, to commemorate the 50 years since the 1972 Stockholm Conference on Human and Environment. The key outcome of this meeting was a high-level declaration for Stockholm plus 50. The Conference of Parties, COP15, on the Convention of Biodiversity, will be held in China in September this year to take final decisions on the post-2020 global biodiversity framework. For your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your words, and I would indeed like to turn.
Thank you to the government's attempts to make the transition, and we'll carry that through to Sharm el-Sheikh. But
Peter, you were 12 seconds over.
This conference comes at the right place, at the right time, with the right approach, and with the right Secretary General of the United Nations. Yes, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to have His Excellency Antonio Guterres promoting this important meeting as UN Secretary General, a man of principles, a man of convictions, a promoter of peace, social justice, and sustainable development. The right place, Lisbon, Portugal. Portugal is what it is because of the oceans. Portugal, a platform between oceans, continents, cultures, civilizations. In the past, in the present, in the future. Sometimes succeeding, others failing, but always present and building bridges as this fruitful co-organization with Kenya, another bridge builder, one from the north, the other from the south. The right time, in spite of 2 years of forced postponement, of a pandemic, of a war, of dramatic economic and social crisis, and even together with the G7 meeting and the NATO summit. Regime, institutional powers, politicians go, the oceans stay. They are millions and millions of years old, long before humanity. They will be there for another millions and millions of years, provided we take care and stop killing them. Right time too, because oceans are central in geopolitical balance of power, healthcare, economic resources, energy, mobility, migrations, scientific and technological development, climate change. All of these is present either in the context or in the outcome of pandemic, of war, and of crisis.
We are facing what I would call an ocean emergency. Our oceans are issuing an SOS. They are struggling, heating, and acidifying. Corals are dying. Coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrasses, and wetlands are being degraded. Fisheries are being depleted, and the ocean is choking in plastic waste. We must work together to right these wrongs. We live in a world of limited, finite resources, but we treat them as if they were endless, and this must change. From sustainable aquaculture to green shipping and protecting and restoring coral ecosystems, we all have a role to play. Governments, businesses and industry, ocean communities and individual consumers. And there is some good news. There has been significant progress on a legally binding instrument on the conservation and sustainable use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. A new treaty is being negotiated to address the global plastic crisis that is choking our oceans. And just a week ago, we saw multilateralism in action with the World Trade Organization agreement on ending harmful fishery subsidies. But much more needs to be done. And I hope to see more progress from this week's conference. It is time to stop neglecting the health of our oceans. It is not a rubbish dump. It is not a source of infinite plunder. It is a fragile ecosystem on which we all depend for oxygen, for climate regulation, and for food. We must take action. We must be focused on solutions, And we must sustainably manage the ocean's resources for the good of humanity and the health for the planet. And that is what this conference is about. Thank you. The ocean connects us all. Sadly, we have taken the ocean for granted, and today we face what I would call an ocean emergency. We must turn the tide. Global heating is pushing ocean temperatures to record levels, creating fiercer and more frequent storms. Sea levels are rising. Low-lying island nations face inundation, as do many major coastal cities in the world. The climate crisis is also making the ocean more acidic, which is disrupting the marine food chain. Ever more coral reefs are bleaching and dying. Coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, seagrasses, and wetlands are being degraded. Pollution from land is creating vast coastal dead zones. Nearly 80% of wastewater is discharged into the sea without treatment, and some 8 million tons of plastic waste enter the oceans every year. Without drastic action, this plastic could overweight all the fish in the oceans by 2050. Plastic waste is not found in the most remote areas and is now found in the most remote areas and deepest ocean trenches. It kills marine life, and it is doing major harm to communities that depend on fishing and tourism. One mass of plastic in the Pacific is bigger than France. Unsustainable fishing practices are also rampant. Overfishing is crippling fish stocks. So, Excellencies, we cannot have a healthy planet without a healthy ocean. Our failure to care for the ocean will have ripple effects across the entire 2030 agenda. The ocean produces more than half of the oxygen we breathe. It is the main source of sustenance for more than 1 billion people. And industries relating to the ocean employ some 40 million people, and a healthy and productive ocean is vital to our shared future. Third, we must protect the oceans and the people whose lives and livelihoods depend on them from the impact of climate change. All new coastal infrastructure, investments from cities and villages to port installations should be climate resilient. The shipping sector should commit to net zero emissions by 2050 and present credible plans to implement those commitments. And we should invest more in restoring and conserving coastal ecosystems such as mangroves, wetlands, and coral reefs. These are instrumental in capturing carbon and enhancing people's resilience and livelihoods. Finally, I invite all to join the initiative I recently launched to achieve the goal of full early warning system coverage in the next 5 years. We will target efforts to reach coastal communities and those whose livelihoods depend on early warning at sea. Fourth, we need more science and innovation to propel us into a new chapter of global ocean action. I invite all to join the goal of mapping 80% of the seabed by 2030. And I encourage the private sector to join partnerships that support ocean research and sustainable management. And I urge governments to raise their level of ambition for the recovery of ocean health.
My first word is to thank Secretary General Antonio Guterres, not only for coming back home. We recall his action as Prime Minister here, but also because he has been permanent in his commitment on an issue that is so important for all of us. So courageous, a fighter a permanent fighter for it, for the oceans, for climate action. And this conference is an example of his commitment. It started wonderfully with the youngsters, with the Youth and Innovation Forum. And today we could have the example, the symbol of multilateralism throughout this morning, with concrete promises and binding promises coming from every continent. From Latin America, concerning protected areas, 30%. Coming from one country, speaking on behalf of other countries. Also, from Portugal, as the Portuguese Prime Minister spoke of anticipating the promise of having also 30% protected maritime areas. And then from almost every speaker, we heard good news about this fight. But I would very much like also to speak of the cooperation between us, Kenya and Portugal, preparing this conference. Two countries, one from the north, the other one from the south, showing how cooperation is so important today. In a moment of dissent, in some cases of war, we just do the opposite. We build consensus, we build multilateralism, we have an approach that is the approach of dialogue, but open, diversified dialogue where the different generations, not just states, not just public powers, political powers, but societies, business, science, technology. And this is so promising in a time of alarm concerning the oceans and climate action, that Lisbon could be a starting point for quite a change in action based on science, but action as the Secretary General, with his 4 recommendations, has pointed out to us. Financing, addressing people's concerns, concrete problems, a road for the future.
Let me conclude trying to say what is a very wise Swahili proverb, which teaches us, bahari itatufikisha popote. The ocean leads us anywhere. It can help open new horizons and lead us to a more just and sustainable future for all. Together, let us do our part to make a difference for the ocean and for ourselves. Thank you.
Are you tired of regularly pumping out your septic tank? Worry no more. We are here to build for you a modern biodigester septic which never gets filled up. No pump out, occupies less building space, less building cost and time, can build for renters, institution and family houses. Environment friendly. For installation, call 0728 321025.